Hello again, and welcome to Front Runners in Sports Management 3.0. It's time for our last discussion of the day, and we're very happy and honored to have with us Hall of Fame coach Rick Pitino. Coach Pitino will talk about leadership and the characteristics of a leader, especially in the post-COVID era. Uh, Coach, so glad to have you here. Uh, Stage is yours.
Well, leadership is an interesting topic because there's so many different ways that people lead. In my lifetime, I used to look at Vince Lombardi, the ex-coach of the Green Bay Packers, as somebody who exemplified great leadership. And why did I look up to him more so than, say, a basketball coach? Well, he had all the things that I looked at that presented what a great leader is all about. First and foremost, he had command of his players. His players respected him. His players believed in what he was teaching. He was a motivator. He was a communicator. And he taught the fundamentals of the game the right way. And those are the ingredients that go into leadership, because if you can't communicate, and let's start with that word, communication. Communication is an ability, and I always say you communicate the best when you listen 4 times to the amount you speak. This is very, very difficult for leaders. Leaders just want to sometimes speak, but you don't know how to use the other word, motivate, unless you listen. And that's one thing I found out later on in years in my coaching life, that the more I listened, the better motivator I became. So let's start with leadership principles, and the number one thing, the ability to communicate. So when we say that, to communicate with someone who you're leading, you have to understand their motive of why they want to be successful. Some athletes want to be successful to earn a larger income. Some athletes want to be successful because of their ego. Some athletes want to be successful because they have a competitive drive and spirit and passion inside of them where they want to excel. People like Michael Jordan, they have this competitive, what I call a competitive disorder. They just step up between those lines and they want to compete at everything. If they play you in chess, ping pong, tennis, golf, they just want to beat your brains in. They have competitive disorders. And the Michael Jordans of the world, the Kobe Bryants, the LeBron Jameses, now Giannis, they place winning above everything. And that type of competition makes them a winner, that drive that they have. So when we start off, anytime you want to be a leader, you have to understand how to motivate. And before you ever get to motivating someone, you have to know what makes them tick. You can communicate as a whole with a group with a certain message. That's fine. But what I like to do is grab the athletes individually, get to know them, get to know their families, get to know what makes them tick. And then by listening 4 times to the amount I speak, I find out what buttons to push. And that's a big key. You need to know what buttons to push to get the most out of someone's athletic abilities. And that's what leaders need to do. So communication, the ability to listen 4 times to the amount you speak, leads to motivation, establishing the motive in every athlete to find out what makes them want to excel. Once we get by those 2 things, now we got to reach a level of excellence. And I wrote a book in 1996, which was a New York Times Business Book of the Year, called Success is a Choice. And I wrote the chapters. It took me all summer to write the book. And I couldn't think of the title. I had all 10 chapters down. And it just fell on right in my lap when I was giving a speech. And I said to the audience I was speaking to, I said, you're not born with certain things. You're not given certain things, and success doesn't come easy in life, but success is really a choice that you make. And thus, I had the title of the book, because success is really a choice that we all make. And it starts with an attitude. You know, you've heard many, many times in sports and business, a positive attitude leads to positive results. Well, it's a bit elementary, yes, but it's so true, because a positive attitude is infectious for the people you're leading. In my organization, I don't want cynical people. That doesn't mean that we're not going to have our negative days. That doesn't mean we're not going to have our moments of what I call darkness of doubt, where we doubt we're going to be successful. Maybe we're not tall enough. Maybe we're not quick enough. Maybe we're not experienced enough. And darkness of doubt enters the equation. That's normal. But positive people understand how to get creative and make that darkness go away. And it's short-lived. So once you get by the ability to listen, and you find out how to pull the trigger on your athletes, the people you're leading, you've motivated them, and now you make success their choice. And it starts with the fundamentals in business. Right now, as I watch young Greek players when I was over in Greece, and I wonder why there are not many guys like Spanoulis, Yamadides, athletes like this coming along, shooters like Frankie Albertas. Where are the young, great basketball athletes? I don't see it at a young age right now. So you start to question, why is this? Is the passion subsiding? Is basketball not as popular? Well, it really goes down to the fundamentals of the game. If you teach the fundamentals the right way, you can create great shooters, great ball handlers, great passes. When you start teaching the whole before the parts, in other words, I put a team together and all I do is I work on the offenses, the pick and rolls, the defenses, the man-to-man defenses, how we play a pick and roll. And I don't work on the fundamentals of how to dribble, how to cut, how to use screens, how to go back door. All I'm doing is putting in offenses and defenses, but not teaching the fundamentals of what I call triple threat, being able to pass, catch, and shoot. So the fundamentals are very important. And the fundamentals in business and leadership are also very important. The one thing I have found out in 2021, if you try and lead by fear, you're going to fail in the long run. Nothing wrong with failure. I've always said this, and I believe it. I read it a long time ago, that failure is a good thing. It teaches you humility. It teaches you how to be successful. And failure sometimes is fertilizer to help future things grow in your life. And failure can be a great thing. I learned with the Boston Celtics, the first time in my life, as a basketball coach, my team did not reach its potential. We went from, I think, 14 games to 32 games to 38 games, and we sort of leveled off. And we did not reach where we wanted to go. And it was the first moment in my life as a basketball coach I failed. So I looked at the reasons after I left the Boston Celtics, why the team failed. The obvious thing when you look in the mirror is, oh, it couldn't be me. It had to be the fact that we didn't have a named center. We didn't have enough talent. We didn't have enough money. Well, those are all excuses. And I've always called excuses signs of weakness. You have to look in the mirror and first say, okay, this is what I did wrong. And it led to the failure of our team. In my case, I was also president of the Boston Celtics as well as being a coach. I was trying to save money as president, taking away my coaching ability. One would fight the other. when I should have been spending the money, not be concerned about it, and win games. Because in the end, you are your record. It's all about winning. So I learned a lot through failure, and it made me better. And I just mentioned the word that's also very key. We talked about communication. We talked about motivation. Here's the other word, humility. Humility stops greatness. When you hear the word ego, when in a biblical sense, ego sometimes is edging God out. But in an athletic sense, when you hear the word ego, I always call it edging greatness out. When your ego stands in the way of progress and stands in the way of leadership, you look in the mirror and you can never, ever admit your failures. It's really, really important when you fail, you understand why. Don't make excuses. Don't blame others. Step up to the plate and say, this is what I did wrong. I'm going to learn from those mistakes and never duplicate those mistakes again. I'll get creative, make my system better. And that's what I learned. But coming away with humility, which I believe is the common denominator of greatness, you understand why you win. You understand how to handle losing. Humility also is a great understanding of looking at other people and not just looking at their bad parts, their weaknesses. Humility gets you to understand that in every person, there's some form of greatness. And it's up to you as a leader to tap into that greatness. Now, what happens as a leader when you have people on your team that are cynical, negative? They tear apart the fiber of a team. You call them in one-on-one. You educate them. And then if they still can't catch on, unfortunately, they must move on. I've always had that phrase. I'm going to educate them the best they possibly can. If they can't catch on, they must move on. But you first try to educate them what a team is all about. Get them to understand how to raise the self-esteem in others, because that's what leadership is all about. If I have a group of 12 men, 12 women, and I can get them to raise their self-esteem, I know I can get excellence out of each and every one of them, because raising self-esteem is something that's so important in overachieving. We all achieve. We've all achieved in our lives. What do we mean when we hear that term overachieve? Go beyond what you think you can do. Some of us think, yeah, I can get to this point. I can win a bronze medal. No, let's win the gold medal. Let's overachieve. Let's not put limits on our potential. Let's go beyond that. And that's what goal-oriented people do. They make that brass ring so high that it's almost impossible to reach, but they're willing to make that attempt. So as I look at leadership, it encompasses so many different things. But as we all know, it's about getting the most out of the people we lead. And there's steps to that. And I've taken you through quite a few right now. Communication, the ability to listen. Motivation, the ability to establish a motive in every person to get the most out of their abilities. Understanding failure and how to treat it like fertilizer to help things grow in life in the future. Now, the other thing is about success. Success is the most difficult thing for leaders to handle. Some leaders, when they're very successful, get lazy. They delegate more. They take more vacations. They're not as inspired. So success must be handled the right way. It must be handled with humility. And I always say, some people say, well, you have a successful operation, leave it alone. Let it be. Let it carry on. I've never believed in that. I believe if it's not broken, break it and make it better each year. Because your competitors, people you're competing against, will take everything you do well and they will take from you and try to make it better. So you must take your own formula, get creative, and make it better, even though you're successful. You must always try to get better, improve. That's why I've always admired Michael Jordan so much. He always tried to add to his game. Every year he was in the business, he tried to become better. You see it with Giannis right now, because when Giannis broke into the league, he would never consider taking a three-point shot. Now you look at him, his handle is better, his shot is getting better, and within 2 years, he probably won't have a physical weakness on the basketball court because he's always working on getting it better. He's not staying the same. So I tell you, even if you're successful, don't embrace it. Don't hug it. Break it and make it better. Get creative and make your system better so you can grow with your team as a leader. Now, those are the ingredients I live by each day. And I said earlier about cynicism. Cynical people really don't make it in this business as a leader because you're always a doomsayer. You're always looking for ways to fail rather than looking ways to succeed. You have to find ways. You know, I'm at a smaller college, the smallest college I've worked at in 25 years. Our goal is to be a top 10, 15 program in the country. They've been to the NCAA tournament 6 out of 9 years, but can't get out of the first round. So what do we have to do? Well, we're improving the facilities, the infrastructure. We're improving the athletes with player development sessions during the day. We're getting taller, quicker people. If you look at our roster, it's international. We have a player from Germany, Sweden, Rwanda, Nigeria, the Netherlands. So we have another one coming in from Australia. So we're not just sticking to New York City or Los Angeles. We're just going after the best players far and wide. So in order to take a situation and make it something that's much better, we've got to really raise the bar a lot higher. And there's a lot of people out there that are doubtful that it can be done. Not us. We totally believe in our mission. And as leaders, you must believe in your mission. Because if you don't, the people you're leading are going to read it loud and clear. And when you give that message to your team, you better have a firm belief that you're going to win the day. And that's what it's all about, winning that day. Now, what questions do you all have?
Coach, first of all, thank you for your discussion, the motivational speech, and everything that you taught us in the past few minutes. So you imagine we have quite a few questions. Let's start. Okay. Just excuse me, wait a minute. Okay. What do you think, based on your experience, are the strengths and weaknesses of Greek basketball athletes? And on the second note, what are the strengths and weaknesses of Greek basketball clubs?
Well, I think the strength of the Greek basketball player, the ones that I've met, is their attitude. They have great attitudes. The young men that I like, Papa Petro, Papa Giannis, Kalathis, Dino Mitalou, they're just wonderful, wonderful people. I've met some of their parents and I realized why they're wonderful people. So it's the Greek players have an unbelievable attitude. They're very humble people. I am a little concerned about the younger generation because as I started to follow it because of looking at certain things with the national team, I don't see a lot of future players right now. I don't know where they are. The weakness of Greek basketball is there's too many agents telling these young players that they're better than they really are. We have that problem here in the States as well. So what happens, I called it early ego, edging greatness out. Young players think there's something they're not, And when that day arrives, they stop working. Where the older players, the guys I mentioned earlier, like Spanoulis and Yamadides, they never had those problems of people telling them how good they were. They did it the old-fashioned way. They went out and earned it, worked at it. The young players today, they think they're entitled, and they think that should be given something when they haven't earned it. So the only thing I like Greek basketball a lot. What I am concerned about is two areas. I think they have to upgrade once the economy gets back, once we get over COVID, and once the Greek economy, the engine starts working again. I think the facilities have to be updated. The facilities are quite antiquated. It's great that we are certainly progressing to the point where we're doing different things to the Pantheon and the Acropolis and making sure it stands forever. But those gyms aren't going to stand forever. They need to be done over. And the facilities need to be modernized. But that's probably down the road. The people have to get back to work. COVID has to get behind us. But I know the will of the Greek people. It will happen.
Thank you. Another question that has to do with the role of women in sports. Do you believe that women can be distinguished in sports organizational leadership? What is the most important characteristics for women in order to be successful as an off-the-field sport leader?
In my lifetime, I get a little upset at this because I get a lot of credit. They called me the godfather of the three-point shot when I came into play in 1987. We led the nation in three-point shooting, and my New York Knicks were known as the Pitino's Bombinos. But one of the things here today, you see Becky Hammon, the coach of the Spurs. I was the first one to hire a female coach in 1996. Excuse me, 1992. When we played in that famous game where we lost to Christian Laettner of Duke, I think it was 103-102. On my bench was Bernadette Locke, who became a head coach after that. But this is in 1992. We hired a female assistant on the bench. And people said, why did you hire a female assistant? I said, to make our club better. So it didn't matter to me whether it was a female or a male. I was trying to make my team stronger. And to have that coach on my bench made my team stronger in recruiting, in scouting, in basketball. And the way I looked at it, it was an asset to make our team better, to have a female on our team. So when you look at females in sports, whether it's as a referee, whether it's as a head coach, whether it's on a male team, obviously we're never going to have women play in the NBA, and we're never going to have the men play in the WNBA, but we certainly are going to have a head coach at the NBA level who's a woman. We already have it in collegiate sports because there's no different. I can't tell you any difference in coaching abilities, leadership abilities based on gender. So women have all the abilities in sports to be great coaches, great leaders, great athletes, certainly. And there's no different. The same formula that you use in sports to declare your excellence, it really doesn't matter based on gender. Hope that answers that.
Absolutely. We have a question from basketblog.gr. So how did you decide to invest in Ortez, a very historic team that is located in a small town with limited investment and promotional opportunities?
Well, it all started with a group of 5 people that got together in New York City based on, I'll use the expression because everybody will know it if I say Bitcoin. It's called block trading. We were trying to bring a professional team to Seattle with the fans owning the team with something called block trading. It would be like Bitcoin. And we took it to the NBA office. The 5 of us started out. Now there's about 12 of us involved. And I came up with the suggestion of before you do it with an NBA team, why not try it in Europe at a much lower scale? I actually wanted to buy a Greek team, but there were no Greek teams that were for sale at this time. So they looked into, we looked into it. One of my ex-players looked into this team in France that had great tradition, great history. And we're in the process right now of putting the deal together. My role, along with who I brought in, Jamal Mashburn, a ex-player of mine and business partner, I'm a basketball advisor to the group. I'm not getting involved in the business aspect of it. They hope to buy the real estate surrounding it and build certain things. They have grand ideas. I've got enough on my plate right now just to serve as a basketball advisor. Maybe look at the talent, see how we can improve the talent, things of that nature.
Very insightful. Thank you. Another question from sporttime.gr. When was your last communication with the Greek Basketball Federation regarding the national team?
Oh, I've had a few Zoom calls with the coaching staff that I put together and the people from the federation. I had a meeting in the summertime. It started out. I've had about 3 or 4 meetings with the federation, but now I understand that the federation is going to get new leadership. I think they vote in a few months. And this is the way I look at it. I said from day one, I would be more than happy to try and get the Greek team to qualify for the Olympics. I don't want any remuneration. I don't want any type of pay whatsoever to lead the Greek team. I do it because the love of I've grown for the country. But on the other hand, if new leadership comes into play and they would want somebody else to be the coach, I am totally fine with that as well. My services are for Greece and to try and accomplish certain things. But my plate, like I said, is very full with a lot of things I have going on in my basketball life. And certainly if there's a change in leadership and they would like somebody else to be the coach, I'm fine with that as well. So right now I'm moving forward to be the national coach. But if leadership comes in and their focus is elsewhere, I'm perfectly fine. There's no hard feelings whatsoever.
Okay. Question from journalist Nikos Bourlakis. If you ever considered to invest in Greece, what would be the main thing that needed to change in the Greek environment in order to ensure the safety and potential of this investment?
You're talking about a business investment?
Yes. Into a team.
Into a team?
Yes.
A sports team?
Correct.
Well, I think the number one thing, like I said, just what I'm doing here at Iona, I think you have to make the facilities first class. And that's the one thing that's missing in Greece, first class facilities. So I think the infrastructure is very, very important. You know, when I took over the Boston Celtics, the amazing thing about it, here's the grandest tradition in all of professional basketball, and they were practicing. What's the team, the gym that Spanulis started out? Marusi, I think it was. Marusi? Yes, Marusi. That's a small little gym. Now they have a Division II program. That's where the Boston Celtics were practicing, a place called Hellenic College, a Division III college. And then they moved to Brandeis, another Division III. They had no facilities whatsoever. We built a $200 million facility, and now they built something even more grand than that. So the one thing that's happened with the NBA professional teams had all these very substandard practice facilities. Now they have the Taj Mahal practice facilities that are all, one is better than the other, and they use it to attract athletes. So I think it all has to start in Greece, going back to antiquated facilities, building those up, and then starting to get the interest from the feeder programs, the academies, and building basketball into a popular sport. It is very popular now, but if you don't start with young people, it will never catch on.
So build from the foundation, basically.
Right. But also make the facilities first class.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to be big. You don't have to have, 22,000 seat stadiums. Whether it's a 5,000 seat stadium, a practice facility. I was very impressed with the gentleman's team, Prometheus, I think it is,
Right.
with the man with the coffee,
Yep.
Island Coffee.
You're right.
I was very impressed when I went there, and I looked at the vision that he had. He built facilities for the athletes to live in, was building an academy, and they would be housed right there. And then he also had great training facilities right there. And out of all the places in Greece I visited, that was unique. That had great vision to it. And I think more of that needs to be done in different parts of Greece.
Okay. Question from Haris Stavru from Sport 24. How challenging and demanding is to coach in NCAA, be the head coach of a national team, and also be very active business-wise?
Well, the business wise, I have a lot of people around me that have, as a leader, the one thing you have to do, surround yourself with people in the room that are smarter than you. So what I've always tried to do in business is make sure that the people around me have much better sense from a business acumen standpoint than I do. Even in basketball, I don't hire yes men. I don't hire assistant coaches that just want to learn from me. I want to make sure they bring things to the table. And that's why I enjoyed going to Greece and being part of the EuroLeague. The EuroLeague does a lot of things basketball-wise that we don't do here in the States. And in certain areas, especially in the areas of passing the basketball, we don't nearly throw bounce passes like they do in the EuroLeague. The motion offensively, you don't see James Harden dribbling through his legs 10 times in the EuroLeague and then pulling back and taking a three-point shot. That doesn't happen. There's a lot of movement, a lot of passing, and I really enjoy that. Now, the defense over here in the States, maybe because the athleticism is far superior, is a lot further advanced. The shot blocking, the hand activity, the steal situations with certain full court presses. So I always try to make sure that I surround myself with people who are not yes men, but people that can get the job done. That's what I've done in business. So I can just focus on basketball. I've allocated, obviously, my plan is to come over in mid-April to Greece and catch the remaining part of the EuroLeague and look at Olympiacos and look at Panathinaikos and look at Ike and some of the other teams to see some of the young players. If any of those players can make the national team and contribute. We have a few other players from, Dorsey, certainly, that we need to look at from Maccabi and other players as well. So I need to get over there and look at that and put together a team that really wants to. You remember, you don't have a lot of time with the national team. You only have about 2 weeks to prepare. Now, Olympiacos, some of the players at Olympiacos won't be playing in the Greek league, so they'll be finished a little early and you could start working them out. That being said, though, you need to find out some other players that blend in very well. The good thing about the players from Greece is they got great international experience of playing FIBA basketball. So they're used to it. They have great national team experience. Obviously, it's going to be in Victoria, Canada. Canada is the home base, be highly competitive. But that experience, there's no substitute for experience.
Thank you, Coach. Another question by Haris Stavru. Going back to the investment in Powertez, what made you invest in a French team and why you didn't try to get in a bigger market, maybe on a EuroLeague caliber club?
Well, remember now, I'm just a basketball advisor. So it's all what's available. And we wanted a team with tradition. We looked into the EuroLeague. We looked into London. But the EuroLeague wants to expand certainly to England. The EuroLeague possibly needs another team in France. But the EuroLeague right now is not easy to segue into at this time. So we're open to a lot of different things, but I'm just an advisor in this situation. And it's more basketball expertise, not the business side of it that I'm into. The business side is a lot of Wall Street type people that have a lot better judgment than I do in terms of the finances.
Okay. Another question is, how easy is for a former leader, athlete, or coach to be a successful leader as a member of the board in a team? Uh, Here they use the example of Alberts and Diamandidis, or as an investor in a team, like you do with Ortez.
Well, those two guys, look, some of the greatest players in the world don't turn out to be some of the greatest coaches in the world because they're so critical of the weaknesses of other players. The great thing about Diamandidis and Albert and Frankie is they're very humble people, just great people. They don't think that their way is the only way. So I thought that was a brilliant move by Dimitri in putting those guys in charge of the organization. Now, their heart is in it. They live and breathe that organization. So I do believe they'll make the right moves, but you at the professional level, it's different than the collegiate level. It's different than a lot of levels. At the professional level, there's a reason why the Lakers won last year. It's called LeBron James and Anthony Davis. There's a reason why the Nets are going to be so strong right now, and everybody's talking about them, even though they don't play great defense. There's a reason why the Bucks are really good, the Milwaukee Bucks. So it's all about talent and getting the talent to play together and to play defense together. Without defense, now that's the big question with the New Jersey Nets. Last night, 3 great players lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who, by the way, were banged up and injured, and they lost to them. Why? The defense was not great. So no matter how much offensive talent you put on the court, unless the defense can match the offense, you're probably not going to win it. When you look at the great Chicago Bulls teams, what sticks out? Michael Jordan was top 5 defensive player. Scottie Pippen was a top 5 defensive player. Dennis Rodman was a top 5 defensive player. So that's really, really key. Your defense has got to match the offense. And without defense, no matter how well you move the ball, shoot the basketball, you're going to have a night where you're going to lose the game and get knocked out of the playoffs.
Thank you. Another question, in all of your time coaching, is there a standout player that sets an example as a model and a leader? I know you mentioned Michael Jordan before. I don't know if there's anybody else. You want to elaborate more on that?
I think that there are certain players like Steph Curry. Every young player today putting on a uniform wants to be Steph Curry because they can't envision themselves being LeBron because of his physique. They can't envision themselves being Anthony Davis because of he's 6'11", 7 feet. But every young kid thinks they could be Steph Curry. The other day on ESPN, Steph Curry for over 5 minutes didn't miss a shot from the 3-point line in the corner. He made 103 in a row. I still can't imagine that being possible. So every young person out there now wants to be a Steph Curry. So I look at Steph Curry as a great model for young guys saying, I don't have to be 6'5". I don't have to be muscular. I don't have to be a certain size. I can be Steph Curry. Now, they don't realize how difficult that is to be a Steph Curry, but it's something that they can look at. Leaders as basketball players right now, I'm a gigantic fan of Kevin Durant. I don't know if he's a leader or not. I like his game. I think he's a terrific passer. He's almost 7 feet. He scores mid-range jump shots. He goes to the basket. He's coming off an Achilles injury, and he does it all. He can pass. He shoots it with range. He's got a mid-range game. He's got a great first step. Just a remarkable basketball player. He never gets the credit. His personality is not as bubbly as some of the guys in the league, so he doesn't get enough credit. He's the most underrated superstar. That's kind of difficult because everybody thinks of him being so great, but to me, he's one of the most underrated superstars in the game.
Thank you, Coach. Another question. You shared, it's from Evgenia Zumaka from Adiri. You shared some invaluable lessons today. Regardless of the context, becoming a leader is not an easy task. Did you experience any dark moments in your journey as a leader, and how did you manage to overcome them?
Yeah, I think you're always going to get knocked off the mat. You know what? There was one year, 1996, I was offered 7 NBA jobs in 1 year. 7. And when I got let go after 17 years of Louisville and 3 Final Fours and a national championship, the only job I had in the next 2 or 3 months was from Panathinaikos in Greece. So I packed my bags, took off, and that's the important lesson. It's all about you have a journey and a quest to learn. I packed my bags, never been to Greece, didn't know a single person, with the one premise in mind. I wanted to learn certain things that I may not know at age 65. And it was a great learning experience. And not only did I have a great learning experience, I fell in love with a country. I visited so many places I've never been to. I learned a brand of basketball that doesn't necessarily equate to my brand of basketball, but it was enjoyable to learn a different way to do things. And that's what life is. When you stop learning, you probably stop leading. It's time to retire. So I always want to continue my growth as a leader and as a basketball coach. And that's what you have to do, because there will be dark moments. There will be times where you're not always going to be on top and you're going to get knocked off your perch. That's not important. It's important that when you fall down, you get up right away and continue to fight. It's when you stay on the ground, you stay on the mat, knocked down, feeling sorry for yourself, that there's a major problem. Great leaders don't do that. Great leaders pick yourself up and get on with the game of winning.
Thank you, Coach. And one last question from me before I give the stage and our moderator here. You experienced both in the NBA and the NCAA, both the basketball aspect and the business aspect of the game. Coming here to Europe and play for Panathinaikos, what were the biggest differences, I would say, again, both in the business aspect and in the basketball game?
Well, I accomplished a few things. I stopped smoking in the arena. And I got the greatest kick out of in the old garden, Madison Square Garden in the 50s. People would go to games. They would have a tie, a jacket. All the people, 18,000 people, would have a hat, a suit on, and a tie at a basketball game. And they all smoked in the arena. Here I come to Greece, and at halftime I'd come out, and my throat would be all sore because everybody was smoking in the arena. It was like 1958 again in the old garden. So it was different. Fortunately, we don't smoke anymore in the arenas or restaurants or anything else. And it's something that was different for me. But basketball's basketball, enthusiasm is enthusiasm. I did not know what the Greek fans were chanting during the games. When I asked Thanasis, Giannis's brother, can you tell me what they're chanting? This was a very hostile game. And he said, Coach, you don't want to know. I said, why not? He said, they're not talking about, they're talking about the players' mothers and sisters. And I started laughing. I said, no, don't tell me anymore. I'm not interested in learning.
So we would like to thank you so much. I'm taking the stage. Coach Pitino, it was a truly honor for all of us to have you with us at Frontrunners' first day of our conference. We wish you all the best with your teams and everything you do. And we'll hope to see you soon.
Well, thank you. And send my love to everybody. Stay safe. I'm always pulling for all my friends in Greece, and I want you all to stay safe. And let's get this COVID behind us and get back to some real life.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Thank you.